The joy that you find here you borrow. You cannot keep it long, it seems. But gigolo and gigolette still sing a song and dance along the boulevard of broken dreams.
Everyone who lived through the Great Depression has a story to tell. Stay with us as ordinary people recall extraordinary times in Pennsylvania. The mission of the Civilian Conservation Corps was to stop the destruction of the nation's natural resources and to alleviate the distress caused by unemployment. During its 9-year history in Pennsylvania, 160,000 enrollees in 154 camps planted 50 million seedlings, built 6,300 miles of roads and trails, and spent 65,000 man-hours fighting forest fires. More than a half-century later, their forestry roads continue to provide access in time of fire danger. And in parks throughout the Commonwealth, recreational facilities built by the CCC are still in use.
To begin with, the camps and enrollees were intense. When they started building the wooden barracks, it must have been in October. And they were putting them up fairly fast because they needed them for winter was coming on. And they were pretty cheap lumber and cheap constructed. And they got them up about the 15th of December, and the enrollees moved into them.
My first arrival in camp, one of the most vivid recollections I have was the military aspects of what I saw. We lived in barracks. We ate in a mess hall. There were officers' quarters. There were headquarters. There was a parade ground. I suppose the reason for the military being in charge of the CCC might have been the fact that the military had the know-how to do it.
We had road construction, and it was done with pick and shovel. And if we had a tree stump to pull out, we worked around it until we got it out by hand. And if we had a sod bank to dig off, we done that with pick and shovel. Then we also had improvement cutting, which was done to get firewood and improve the forest. We had fire trails to be built. We had telephone line to be built. Afterwards, we had stream improvement. We had gooseberry crew. It certainly got them off the streets and out in the woods where they were doing something. The enrollee come in for 6 months, but a good many of them re-enlisted when the 6 months was over. I'd say 2/3 of them did, because they still had no work to home, and they were getting 3 meals a day in their clothing, and a little money to spending money, and they weren't having to work too hard, but they were still getting something done.
I suspect that my experience didn't have the impact on me that several years had on some of the others. 3 months is a rather short time to expect an experience to turn a person's life around. But at the same time, some of those men were there for 5, 6, 7 years. And physically, I think it was a life that contributed to their well-being. It was a healthy life. The food was planned. It was nutritious. The opportunities for excess were rather limited. So I see it as an experience that would benefit most young men. For the most part, these were streetwise boys. They gave me the impression of being tough, self-reliant young men. Nevertheless, very little real friction, a lot of grousing about food. Some of those boys groused continually about the poor food. I thought it was fine. I always suspected, even at the time I was there, I suspected that some of those boys never had it so good, coming from the environment that they sprang from.
Majority of them were from downstate, coal mining regions, and families where the mother and father couldn't get work, and they were, the people were hungry. We had one boy that came out on my crew, and I left him with a crew leader raking stone. And when we come in at noon for lunch, the crew leader said all he wanted to do is sit on the bank. And I said, oh, okay, I'll take care of it. After we went back to work, I called the boy to one side and talked to him. I explained that he wasn't supposed to kill himself out there, but he was supposed to do a little work. And a month later, I had that boy made assistant leader, just because he went to work, and I think the one reason he didn't work the first day, he was hungry. And a lot of the boys, when they come into camp, were hungry. Typical day, they got up in the morning, went to breakfast at 7 o'clock, was ready to go out, get on the truck and go to work at 8. They would work until 12, and either lunch was brought out or we loaded them on the truck and took them in for dinner. They were back in again at 4 o'clock in the evening. And from there on, their time was their own.
Educational programs were offered to us as enrollees during the evening. There was a complete garage facility, and several men had the opportunity to learn to be mechanics. There were cooks, learned the same skills as Army cooks. I didn't take part in any of that. Most of my experience involved the use of an axe. I wouldn't call it busy work, but at the same time, it would be difficult to put that many man-hours in that many acres of timber and say that you had done it economically and the result would be good.
I think that it was a good thing for all those CC boys because they got their exercise. They grew up, they developed, and they associated with other boys that was in the same condition they were in, needed something to do. And so I really think it was a good program.
In my estimation, the CCC program was a success. It gave young men a chance to develop some skills, some self-reliance, some ability to interact with their peer group, and they're very proud of having been in the CCCs.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.